Hi guys, and welcome to the next episode of my van build series. And in today's video I'm going to start by removing the satellite dish and the junction box from the roof to give us some more room for solar panels up there. This is a nightmare to get off. Right then, here are the holes we need to patch up in the fiberglass roof. I'm going to start off by keying up the whole area here with some sandpaper. I'm just mixing up a small amount of this fiberglass stranded filler for doing the holes in the roof. This should stick nicely. Put some hardener on here. Just give it a nice mix up. I'm now just going to get my bridging mesh and poke two corners under. And then I get my fiberglass filler and press it into the mesh, and that should form a nice watertight seal. That's what it looks like from the inside. You can see the fiberglass strands have gone through that wire mesh, and that helps to keep its structure. Now I'm just going to put a skim over the inside as well, so that shouldn't leak. And then I'll just get a little bit of Sikaflex just to fill up these screw holes here. And that should be good. I'm going to be using 25mm insulation boards for doing the ceiling and these side bits as well. It's a really good insulating material. In the winter time it should trap all the heat in. Obviously heat rises, so you're going to have this pocket of warm air up here, and then in the summertime when the sun's beating down on the roof from the outside, hopefully that good insulating material should prevent that heat transfer into the inside, so it will stay nice and cool. That's the plan anyway. I should be able to use the width of an insulation board and then just cut it down to fit in between these beams, and then I'm going to tape up in between them, and that's going to be the vapour barrier. Right, let's put this one up. There we go. Let's drop this down, get some expanding foam. And then push that up. So that's one panel stuck up. I'm going to do the same down the van now. Let's move to the next one. That's better. Push fit. I'm actually going to cut this slightly smaller because I don't want this when the van's vibrating. See, this side's not doing it. There we go, I've just trimmed this edge off so it's not squeaking now. It's worthwhile just pressing over all the edges to make sure that none of your panels are going to squeak from the vibrations, and it all feels pretty good. So I'm going to tape up these joins now. It's a good idea to use this flexible conduit because you don't want your cables rubbing against the bare metal, chafing through, and then you'll have electrical faults. By using this flexible conduit, we're also future-proofing the van, so if ever we want to run a cable from back to front, we can just feed it through here. And this is going to be for a 230 volt socket at the front of the van. Just running Arctic cable, which is designed for outdoor use and for this application. If you look in the regs, this is what it's supposed to be running. So there we go. And for the walls, I'm going to be using this recycled plastic loft insulation. Measure that roughly. It's really easy to rip this stuff. Should get the dog to do this, he'd love it. Might stop him ripping up the cushions indoors. One of the main reasons I decided to redo this van was to have a fixed double bed at the back. I've got some 3x2 timbers here. It was a 3 metre length, I've cut it in half, so I've got two 1.5 metre lengths, and I'm going to be bolting these to the side of the van. And they'll be the top and bottom of the bed, as the bed's going to be running widthways across here. And obviously it's important to maximise the space across the van so taller people can lay in here. I'm not that tall myself, so I'm not too worried, but if ever I want to sell the van, it's important. Now I'm going to hold up a piece of wood to the side of the van, mark on the wood where the centre of the holes are. Now I'm going to transfer my mark to the front of the wood, and then I'm going to measure down to the centre of this hole. Let's mark 20 mm down from the top of the wood. And that's where we want the centre of our hole. I haven't got any bolts long enough, so I'm going to be using some of this studding with some nuts and washers either side of the timber, and that will clamp it nicely to the side of the van. Exactly where I want it to be there, so let's tighten this one down. Yeah, that's not moving. There's a mock-up of the bed. It already did collapse when I tested it, so I'm a little bit cautious. There we perfect. There's a little bit of wiggle room there. Obviously you can sleep at an angle and that'll give you a little bit more room. My partner's shorter than me anyway, so she won't have to worry. Now I've insulated the walls and I've got my cable run through where I want it to be. I'm going to use some of this damp-proof membrane sort of material. It's just plastic sheet as a vapour barrier. A really commonly asked question I see in van build forums is should I or should I not use a vapour barrier, and there's so many conflicting arguments. I've decided to use a vapour barrier as it makes sense in my head. By having this plastic sheet here all sealed up around the edge, the warm vapour from inside the van shouldn't be able to penetrate this to condense on the cold metal panels, so you shouldn't get condensation form behind here if you've got a vapour barrier. Lots of people say don't bother with this step, you don't need to do it, you need good airflow through the panels and then you won't get condensation, as ventilation is key to stop condensation. I'm not too sure what the answer is. I think maybe it comes down to the climate that you live in. If you live in a really cold environment, then a vapour barrier is probably a good idea, whereas if you live in a warmer country such as the south of France, or you know, you're going to be travelling in warmer climates, maybe you don't need the vapour barrier as much because you're not going to have the extreme temperature differences from the inside and the outside. But I'm not an expert, I'm not sure what the exact science is behind it. This is the way I'm doing it and I'm sticking with using a vapour barrier. We'll see what happens later on down the line. If I start having puddles of condensation forming the bottoms of the panel, or all this insulation starts going mushy, then I probably won't use it next time. These insulation boards come with a foil coating on them, so when you tape up the edges that forms one large vapour seal across the ceiling. I've left the corners exposed at the moment so I can run my cables through there in the first fix wiring stage, and then after that we can go about installing the ceiling cladding. I'm going to finish up sealing all these panels and then hopefully I'll see you in the next one where we'll start the first fix wiring and cladding the ceiling.